Welcome to the Reddit Chronicles. Today we will be reading from Am I the Jerk? Our first post is by Maleficent Winter. Am I the jerk for refusing to kick my friend out so my sister-in-law can rent my house? So me, 34M, and my wife, 34F, moved to a different city last year and left the house I inherited from my parents. Since we moved to a smaller apartment, the change was work-related. We had to leave a lot of stuff. When we left, we decided to rent the house to my wife's younger sister, sister-in-law 1, so she could see what it's like to live on her own. So the rent she paid wasn't much, just symbolic. In exchange, we would stay in the house when we visited and she would look over the stuff we left behind. 7 months later, she decided to return to her parents' home. No big deal. At the time, a friend of mine was going through a very rough patch, so I offered my house, with the same conditions I gave sister-in-law 1, and he accepted immediately. Fast forward 9 months and my wife's older sister, sister-in-law 2, decides she's leaving her husband and going back to her parents with her son and dog, and my wife wants to offer her our house my friend is renting. When I said I wanted to help, I even offered to chip in to rent her own place, but I can't just simply kick out someone who hasn't done anything wrong. My wife got mad and said that her family is above any friend. So, am I the jerk for refusing to kick out a perfectly good tenant to give my house to a sister-in-law, who as far as I know won't even pay? Our next post is by Radiant Study. Am I the jerk for saying that I would leave my cousin's birthday party if I have to give up my seat to an older guest? For context, I, 21M, was just invited tonight to a cousin's 56F birthday party to take place in a restaurant at my city. She's actually my mom's cousin, and that's why she is that much older. I was not originally invited because of the size of the venue, but the location changed, and now I am invited to go. It is important to note that my cousin has this conception of kids to anyone who is younger than 30 years old approximately. So I would be considered a kid on her party, even though I do drink, dance, and share with others that are not actually my age but family still. Now I was invited to go to the party, but as my mom said, there is a little condition in case I go. It would be that, if any other guest who is older than me comes and does not have a seat, I must give them my seat at the table and spend the night standing. It is important to note that the party includes dinner, so I would have to most likely stand while everyone is eating and chatting. The reason for this whole issue is that my cousin only booked for 50 seats, but will have more than 50 guests, and me being a last-minute guest would have to be under those conditions. The first thing I told my mom when she told me that was that I wasn't going, but she might need some help to keep an eye on my dad for some out-of-context circumstances related to medical issues that doesn't allow him to fluently communicate. After listening to that, I said that I would think about going, but that if I had to spend the night standing because of someone else wanting my seat, I would be leaving on the spot, calling a taxi and going back home without saying a word to anyone. My mom said that it would be rude to do it and disrespectful, and in case I'm thinking on doing that, I shouldn't go. My question is, would I be the jerk if I did that, or should I simply not go? Our next post is by Left Pop. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law she should evaluate her own actions as well as the actions of her older children, instead of placing blame on my husband? My husband is the only child my mother-in-law and father-in-law had together during their marriage, though both were previously married and had children from those marriages. My husband has always been the outsider when it comes to his siblings. This was something his siblings were vocal and unashamed about. They told him he was not their real sibling and that he did not share the same parents as either set of siblings. Growing up, he felt more like an only child than a kid with siblings. They would tell him he would never be a real sibling to them. Also, they would always make it a point to not mention him when family was referenced, and if they had to do some kind of family tree project, they would always make sure he could see that he was not on it. Mother-in-law and father-in-law would encourage my husband to reach out to his siblings, to take an interest. They would have him give them gifts and cards personally for their birthdays and Christmas. He would be told to go spend time with them. My husband has mentioned that there were times they would get a little annoyed if he was inside and his siblings were outside playing. He did try talking to his parents, but they would tell him he should take an interest, etc. My husband and his siblings are now all adults. My husband is 25 and his siblings are all in their 30s. His siblings also have children. He has never met a single one of their kids. When we got engaged, they did not show up to the engagement party, so he did not invite them to the wedding. Father-in-law at this point had accepted it, but mother-in-law is still frustrated and angry every time my husband doesn't bend over backwards to make the effort with his siblings. They got into a huge fight a few weeks ago. She brought up our wedding and told him it was his fault his siblings didn't come to the engagement party and the wedding, and he never gave them a chance at all with the wedding. She told him he is an adult now and can easily reach out and let them know they are wanted, etc. She told him it was his responsibility and he should be doing more. A week later, she was complaining to me about us not showing up for her grandchild's birthday. I pointed out how we weren't invited and she went on a rant about my husband. I cut her off and told her she had no right to blame my husband. I told her none of this was his fault, that she needs to start evaluating her own actions as well as the actions of her older kids instead of placing the blame for the poor relationship on my husband who was born into this mess. I told her he has tried and in return had her and father-in-law in his face about it all, and on the other side had their other kids telling him over and over he's nothing, he means nothing, they don't care if he gets hurt. She told me to mind my own business, and how dare I speak to her that way? Am I the jerk? Our next post is by Witch Island. Would I be the jerk if I let my ex-husband forget our daughter's upcoming ballet recital? Background. My ex-husband and I co-parent our two kids, 11 and 9. I put co-parent in quotations because I handle the kids 99% of the time. They live with me and I pay for all the expenses. Each kid visits their dad for 2.5 hours a week. This was his choice as he is busy running his restaurant. This has been the past 6 years, so the kids have come to accept all of this as mostly normal. Our daughter, age 9, is dancing in the Nutcracker. Opening night was Thursday, and I was in the front row. She also performs tonight and over the weekend, and has been very excited about this for some time. She has talked with her dad about this over the weeks and she is expecting him to be at one of her shows. On Monday of this week, I texted her dad to remind him of the performance, provided him details of time and place, and asked if he would make it. He responded that he would get back to me. Since then, there has been no response. So, internet strangers, it is now Friday night and performances are tomorrow and the following day. Would I be the jerk if I do not follow up with him, let him forget, and my daughter is let down or disappointed? Edit. When I posted this, I think I was looking for confirmation that I would not be the jerk if I just let it ride without an additional follow-up, so that when my daughter was sad and disappointed, I wouldn't have to feel it was my fault. But a number of posts here made a good point that my daughter is worth the minimal physical effort of sending an additional text. So I sent it, and following the good advice here, I let him know that in the future I will let him know the dates and times of important events, but I won't be following up multiple times to confirm his attendance plans. The resolution, he responded immediately, "Hey, I was just going to text you," and told me he won't be making it. I think it is better to know than wait, hope, or anticipate his non-appearance. I let him know he can phone our daughter in the morning to give her the news himself. Even though I think he is definitely the jerk, I am glad I took the advice here and sent the follow-up. Thank you for listening to the Reddit Chronicles. Follow for more content.